Elon's not interested, and Gordon Getty's been blocked by his family. So poor darling, and Jeff's taken by Lauren. So, I mean, the poor girl, what are her options?
Been to undermine the very people who gave this third-rate actress credibility and status. And that, I think, is unforgivable.
I know for a fact that there have been meetings with billionaires in Los Angeles.
These really successful men out here who Meghan Markle would love to glom onto and she would ditch Harry for in a second.
She's what I would call a ruthless social climber, who just when people are no longer, no longer appropriate parts of her circle, they have to be expunged quickly so she can move on up the ladder.
Being royal wasn't grand enough for her, and she wasn't going to make enough money out of it as quickly as she intended.
Met Meghan Markle.
Met her? We were best friends. She ghosted me.
Did she? Yeah.
Yes.
Does that to a lot of people, actually, by the way.
That was live television. And then a royal commentator went on air and made a claim that raised plenty of eyebrows. He spoke about Harry having meetings with billionaires in Los Angeles. Meetings, not parties. Not premieres. Not some celebrity red carpet with a drink in hand. Meetings! That is a business word, and that choice of wording immediately changed the tone. Sitting beside him was the woman who wrote Harry's biography. She had spent 2 years around him, yet she did not challenge that claim.
Listen to the source revealing she wants 4 floors of the Hyatt Hotel, completely shut down just for her. Extra security outside. Staff aren't allowed to look at her. She's in total control.
Instead, her explanation may have sounded even more damaging. Meghan, she suggested, reportedly remains where she is because the right replacement has not appeared. Read that again. Diana's former butler had previously made a similar argument on television. He had served Diana for 10 years and had seen royal life from behind closed doors. His view was that even millions might not be enough, with billionaire-level wealth becoming the next target. He also raised politics as a possibility, pointing toward California, public office, and real influence.
Meghan is driving Harry to his absolute destruction. And this is something that his family has feared for a very long time.
Then another royal correspondent added fuel from a different angle. Meghan is always thinking about what comes next, he said, and the friendship she is reportedly building with very wealthy men could come in handy. That phrase matters, come in handy. The implication was striking. It painted her marriage as something that could potentially be useful, rather than simply personal. And now, in 2026, questions about Harry's role and income are still hanging over the couple. On a podcast, he was reportedly asked what he does for a living.
Meghan has very good friends for as long as she needs them and often leaves them behind when she thinks that she's got all she wanted from them.
The discussion highlighted his royal title, public appearances and reported speaking fees, including a reported £50,000 payment for a property conference. One camp of commentators argues that the door back into Britain is firmly shut. No clear welcome from the king, no obvious opening with the Wales household, and no easy path back into royal life. One long-time royal magazine editor, Ingrid Seward, once reduced Harry's role to a single word, entree. In other words, he was the connection, the access point, the way into that world. And critics now argue that this access was eventually used for personal opportunities. But rewind, because even the early story is heavily disputed. Critics have alleged that Meghan was visiting London from around 2013 and was interested in meeting an Englishman.
These really successful men out here who Meghan Markle would love to glom onto and she would ditch Harry for in a second.
One panel even mentioned footballer Ashley Cole as an early name connected to that discussion. Then came September 2015, when a message reportedly arrived in Piers Morgan's inbox at around 1 a.m. Morgan kept the screenshot, adding another piece to a story that has been debated ever since. Before Meghan and Harry had their first date, author Tom Bower reported that Meghan had told her agent she had searched for Harry online and looked deeply into his background.
He will dump him when he is no longer much use. But she'd have to have an escape route. She'd have to find a sort of a Silicon Valley or somehow aging billionaire.
Bauer has said that information came through the agent. Critics seized on that detail and framed it as something more calculated than a normal celebrity crush. They called it due diligence. That leads directly into another claim critics have pushed for years, that Meghan expected Harry to have far greater wealth and influence than he actually did.
Bored in California, rattling around that mansion, no job, the charities are a hot mess, a public relations dumpster fire, a smoking ruin, reputationally for Harry.
According to that narrative, she encountered a man living at Frogmore Cottage with an inheritance, royal status, and plenty of attention, but without the enormous personal fortune some people imagined. Lady Colin Campbell then raised the question that cut straight through the entire debate. Would Meghan have been interested in Harry if he had not been Prince Harry? Nobody on the panel needed to answer immediately. The question itself was enough to change the mood in the room. According to critics, nothing was ever simply given away.
Harry says that he wants reconciliation with his family, but then he contradicts himself and says he knows that he's upset some of them, or most of them, and how can he get reconciliation when he keeps giving interviews? None of them trust him.
They argue that every opportunity came with something she wanted in return. During her acting years, one director reportedly claimed that her demands were even bigger than those of established A-list stars. One example involved a private jet for a relatively small production, a detail critics have repeatedly used to paint her as overly demanding. The story quickly became part of the larger image they were building around her. Then came May 2018 in Windsor. Around 600 people packed the chapel, while millions more watched around the world. But critics say the guest list told another story.
And then the next night they had a solo dinner together, and that was the last I ever heard from Meghan Markle. And I have never heard from her again.
So what happened?
She ghosted me, Ryan. Meghan Markle ghosted me.
Did she? Do you think she just went?
I'm afraid. Look, I really liked her. This is why it hurts. No, I really liked her. I just think she's a slight social climber, I'm afraid.
Tom Bauer claimed that some of Harry's longtime friends were absent, while Meghan's Hollywood connections were well represented. Oprah Winfrey, the Clooneys, and several people from Meghan's professional circle were among the high-profile names associated with the wedding. Tina Brown, the former Vanity Fair editor, later looked at that guest list differently. She argued that these were not necessarily the friends Meghan already had, but the people she wanted to know. That interpretation changes the picture completely.
She wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted Harry and found someone who was a childhood friend of his who could introduce them. And then on the days before they met at their blind meeting in a club in London, she researched Harry very carefully and knew exactly what buttons to press.
Andrew Morton, who has written extensively about the royal family, once described Meghan as a networker to her fingertips. And critics have traced that networking story back through the years. A Los Angeles producer and his contacts, connections through Marcus Anderson at Soho House, then Jessica Mulroney, followed by increasingly influential circles in London and Dublin. The pattern, they argue, was about building relationships that could open bigger doors. Here is where the argument gets tested. If someone really cuts people off the moment they stop being useful.
This guy who has never generated $1 for his own benefit or edification, what does he know about making deals and making money?
Critics say there should be a clear trail, and they point to several relationships as examples. Jessica Mulroney reportedly disappeared from Meghan's public circle without much explanation. Ninaki Priddy, who had known Meghan since childhood, later described a relationship that became distant and cold. Then there were other names mentioned in different reports and accounts: Lizzie Cundy, Millie McIntosh, Gina Nelthorpe-Cowan, Nick Eade, and Piers Morgan. Critics grouped these relationships together and described them as a long list of people who eventually disappeared from the picture. But here is the part that needs to be said clearly. Nobody has proved that all of these situations followed one single pattern.
No matter how rich Harry was, she was always going to use him to realize her dreams. When she realized that he wasn't anywhere as rich as she thought he would be.
Some of the stories have completely different explanations. Pretty's falling out, for example, has been linked to her support for Meghan's former husband during a divorce. Ordinary people take sides in divorces all the time, and that fact alone proves nothing. Other people involved have offered different explanations, while some accounts simply do not line up. Now compare that with the relationships that remained visible. Her mother, Serena Williams, Misha Nonu, and Marcus Anderson have all remained connected to her public story in different ways. Anderson, whose Soho House connection dates back years, is still part of that broader circle. Critics look at that and see a pattern. People who remained valuable stayed close, but that is an interpretation, not an established motive. And that is where the whole theory takes a strange turn.
Listen to the source, revealing she wants 4 floors of the Hyatt Hotel, completely shut down just for her. Extra security outside. Staff aren't allowed to look at her. She's in total control.
Critics describe 2 decades of carefully building connections, one relationship at a time, one opportunity after another. Then suddenly, in their telling, the climb appears to stop. The question is whether there is still another rung waiting above her, or whether the entire ladder has changed. There was no dramatic announcement, no official statement, and no public explanation. Instead, critics say the invitations simply started disappearing. Watch the guest list, and they argue you can see the change. Start with one of the biggest Hollywood weddings of the year, packed with major entertainment figures and political influence. Reports claimed the Sussexes were not invited. Then came the Met Gala. Meghan was not moved to a less visible section. She was not quietly placed somewhere away from the cameras.
You know, it was as if Meghan just could not sort of resist everything that was offered on the celebrity buffet. You know, she wanted all of it.
According to reports, she simply was not there. Anna Wintour has enormous influence over that guest list, and commentators took Meghan's absence as another sign that her place inside those elite social circles may have changed. Some critics went even further. They argued that the Duchess title had lost some of its power, and that invitations were no longer automatically following it. Ingrid Seward offered another explanation, saying Meghan benefits professionally from being seen at major events because that visibility could increase her commercial value, up her rate.
I do not hold up high hopes for the future of that marriage. I think with her track record of dropping people when she feels they're no longer useful to her, her first husband, her first husband, her family, her father, her brother and her sister. She dumps people, she drops them from her life when she feels they're no longer any use to her.
That phrase turned the discussion into something almost transactional, as if public appearances could directly affect what she might command professionally. Then came questions about the Sussexes' commercial projects. Netflix reportedly changed its approach, while Meghan's lifestyle series received plenty of harsh criticism from commentators. Yet her fashion influence has continued to generate attention, with products associated with her appearances sometimes selling quickly. And then there is the story involving Lauren Sanchez. Reports have claimed that Sanchez had tried to build a friendship with Meghan years earlier, including invitations that allegedly went unanswered. Other reports have claimed Meghan made an unflattering remark about Sanchez, although the details and sourcing remain disputed. That leaves a striking contradiction at the centre of the story. Critics portray Meghan as someone seeking connections with powerful circles, while also claiming she rejected an opportunity to build a relationship with one of them.
I think that Meghan is not above begging for a presence here, calling and asking, can I please come the way that she did for Paris Fashion Week? I do believe that Anna Wintour has chosen the winning side of this, and that's the working royals.
Then, critics say, the rest of the room went quiet. The Kardashians after that 70th birthday. Elton John, the Obamas, the Clooneys, Oprah. These are all names that have been connected to Meghan's wider social circle at different points, but commentators argue that several of those relationships later became much less visible. That is the pattern being pushed on television. And here is the detail critics say really stings. Meghan's own Netflix series had a real budget, a full production team, her own kitchen, and invitations she could control. Yet, according to the argument, none of those huge names walked through the door. No Elton, no Obama, no Clooney.
She knows William and Catherine are the future, but they also know that Meghan Markle generates headlines wherever she goes, and I think that she would be so desperate that she would do whatever it took to have a presence here.
Not even Serena Williams. The biggest celebrity appearance reportedly came from Chrissy Teigen. Then Lady Colin Campbell brought up a story from Jamaica. She described a camera crew at a private club and claimed Meghan approached a group of people she did not personally know to introduce herself. According to the story, friends later called confused about who she had just met. Campbell's interpretation was blunt. The people in that group were extremely wealthy, and that was supposedly the attraction. Which brings the conversation back to the question the panel had been circling. Has Harry simply stopped being enough for the lifestyle critics believe Meghan wants? Could she eventually pursue a completely different circle, perhaps one built around billionaire-level wealth and influence? The host put that question directly to Lady C, and her response was unexpected. With due respect, she said, before challenging the sympathy behind the argument.
That party was hosted by Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez in their home. And Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez now have control of the Met Gala. We all know it.
Her point was that Meghan had known for years that Harry did not possess the enormous personal fortune some people might have expected. So, in that version of events, this was not a woman suddenly shocked by the size of her husband's bank account. She knew the circumstances, understood the position, and chose to marry him anyway. But here is the twist that rarely makes the thumbnail. According to Lady Colin Campbell's account, Harry may also have presented himself as more powerful and influential than he ultimately proved to be. Her argument was that neither person entered the relationship with the full picture. In her telling, both sides may have been selling an image of what the other could expect. One marriage, two very different expectations. Then comes an even bigger claim.
As long as she has no other options. I mean, let's remember, Elon's not interested and Gordon Getty's been blocked by his family. So poor darling, you know, and Jeff's taken by Lauren. So, I mean, the poor girl, what are her options?
Critics have speculated that William and Catherine would remain focused on Britain and the Commonwealth, while Harry and Meghan could build a much larger international role for themselves. It was an ambitious vision of a global royal partnership. But that plan, if it ever existed in anything like that form, clearly did not unfold as expected. So when Lady C was asked who carried the blame, she did not give the simple answer some viewers were waiting for. Her position was that Meghan carried most of the responsibility, while Harry also played a part by going along with the situation. She described that as connivance rather than simple weakness. Another commentator then repeated a reported remark attributed to a royal source, questioning whether the relationship had been built on genuine affection. The message was brutally unsympathetic. You're the architect of your own misery. That kind of statement captures just how harsh the debate has become. And it explains why another prediction keeps resurfacing among critics. That Meghan could eventually seek a different relationship with someone older, wealthier, or more powerful.
I think to that extent, Harry is party to all of this, because Harry is the one whose delusion of his extreme importance.
But that remains speculation, not established fact. The real question is whether the expectations surrounding money, status, influence, and marriage were ever realistic in the first place. No hit series, no guaranteed podcast success, no clearly reliable income stream that critics can point to. One commentator summed up the situation bluntly. She has a major problem. But be precise about what this actually means. There is no confirmed separation, no divorce filing, and no established plan for either of them to walk away. I am not going to turn speculation into fact just to make the story sound bigger. What exists instead is a collection of opinions and reported comments from people connected to royal coverage, including Harry's biographer, Diana's former butler, royal commentators, and Lady Colin Campbell. Their predictions differ, sometimes dramatically, and there is no verified timeline proving that a split is coming. Then comes the competing forecast.
I think he impressed Meghan with how important he was. And I think she believed that he was so important that ultimately with a few minor adjustments, they could change everything around.
And this is where the argument gets even more intense. One camp claims that if Harry ever separated from Meghan, his father and brother could potentially welcome him back into the royal fold, while Meghan would be left carrying most of the public blame. That is speculation, but it has become a recurring theory in royal commentary. Donald Trump has reportedly made critical comments about Harry, while other commentators have argued that Britain's anger is directed more heavily toward Meghan. Another commentator has described Harry as trapped in the relationship. Lady C's own assessment was particularly harsh. Everybody knows he is treacherous, she said. That is her characterization, not an established fact, and it shows just how bitter the debate around Harry has become. Unpredictable, that was the word used in the discussion. The host then cut in with an even harsher description, referring to what she called a malignant substance named Meghan Markle. But let's be absolutely clear, those were allegations and opinions, not established facts. Her advice was blunt. Leave while leaving is still possible. But would Harry actually do it? Critics argue that going back would mean admitting that other people may have seen problems he did not. In their view, he would have to acknowledge that his choices had consequences, and that could be a difficult step to take. But don't automatically write Harry off as a helpless victim. He is an adult who made his own decisions, defended those decisions publicly, and stayed with them. Critics say she saw an opportunity, while he willingly stepped into it. So where do you land? Was Harry genuinely misled, or was he a grown man who understood what he was getting into and chose it anyway? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter.